My body is my choice. You can't demand anything from me, Derek said, his voice cold as ice as he turned away from me in our bedroom. The words hit me like a physical blow, leaving me standing there in the silk nightgown I had carefully chosen for our 6-week anniversary. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of marriage, and my husband had not touched me once. My name is Emily Harper, and at 28, I thought I had found my fairy tale ending when Derek Lawson proposed to me last spring in Seattle, Washington. The wedding had been everything I dreamed of, a beautiful ceremony at the prestigious Evergreen Hills Country Club, surrounded by friends and family who celebrated what they believed was the beginning of my happily ever after. But as I stood in our bedroom that night, watching my husband's rigid back as he pretended to read his phone, I realized that something was terribly, devastatingly wrong. Derek, we're married, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I'm your wife. I just want to understand why you won't even hold my hand, let alone, don't finish that sentence, he snapped, finally turning to face me. His hazel eyes, once warm and loving during our courtship, now held nothing but annoyance. I told you, my body belongs to me. Marriage doesn't give you ownership over it. You need to respect my boundaries. The word boundaries felt like a slap. During our 8-month courtship, Derek had been affectionate, romantic even. He would pull me close during movies, kiss me goodnight after dates, and hold my hand as we walked through the city park. But the moment we returned from our honeymoon in Aspen, a honeymoon where he had been exhausted every single night, everything changed. It was as if a switch had been flipped, transforming the man I married into a stranger who flinched whenever I came near him. This isn't normal, I said, my voice gaining strength. Married couples are intimate. They share a bed. They touch each other. Normal? Derek laughed bitterly. You want to talk about normal? Normal is respecting your partner's choices. Normal is not pressuring someone into physical contact they don't want. I stared at him, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. His words were technically correct. Consent mattered. Boundaries mattered. But something felt deeply wrong about the way he wielded these concepts like weapons against his own wife. The Derek who had courted me, who had whispered sweet words about our future together, who had seemed desperate to marry me, had vanished completely. As he stalked out of the bedroom, leaving me alone with my confusion and growing suspicion, I made a decision that would change everything. Something was very wrong with my marriage, and I was going to find out what. The next morning, I sat at our kitchen table, staring at my untouched coffee as Derek moved around the kitchen with mechanical precision. He had always been organized, but lately his routines felt almost obsessive. He checked his phone constantly, stepped outside to take calls, and had developed a habit of disappearing for hours without explanation. I'm going to visit my sister in Phoenix this weekend, I announced, watching his reaction carefully. Derek's hand froze on his coffee mug for just a moment before he nodded. That sounds nice. How long will you be gone? Just the weekend. Why? Will you miss me? I asked, testing the waters. He shrugged without looking at me. I'll manage. The casual dismissal of my absence should have hurt, but instead it confirmed what I had been suspecting. Derek seemed relieved whenever I left the house. During our courtship, he hated when business trips separated us even for a day. Now, he practically encouraged my absence. I studied his profile as he scrolled through his phone. Derek was undeniably handsome. Tall, with thick dark hair, and those striking hazel eyes that had first caught my attention at a cafe downtown. He worked as a financial consultant, or so he claimed, though I had never met any of his colleagues or clients. When I asked about his work, he would give vague answers about confidentiality and client privacy. "Derek," I said carefully, "I was thinking we should see a marriage counselor. This distance between us, it's not healthy." His head snapped up, and for a moment, I saw something flash in his eyes. Panic, maybe, or fear. But it was gone so quickly I wondered if I had imagined it. "We don't need counseling," he said firmly. "We just need time to adjust to marriage life. Not everyone falls into perfect rhythm immediately." "It's been 6 weeks," I reminded him. 6 weeks is nothing in the scope of a lifetime together. But his voice sounded rehearsed, as if he had practiced this response. That afternoon, after Derek left for what he claimed was a client meeting, I did something I have never imagined myself doing. I searched through his things, not out of jealousy, but out of a growing conviction that the man I married was keeping secrets from me. His home office was meticulously organized, almost suspiciously so. His desk drawers contained only basic office supplies. His filing cabinet held generic financial documents, and his computer was password protected. But as I was about to give up, I noticed something odd. In the trash can, partially hidden beneath other papers, was a receipt from a florist in Las Vegas. The date was from 3 weeks ago, when Derek claimed to be at a financial conference in Salt Lake City. The receipt was for a dozen red roses, and written on the back in Derek's handwriting was a phone number with a Nevada area code. My hands trembled as I photographed the receipt with my phone. Whatever Derek was hiding, I was going to find out. The man I married was living a lie, and I deserved to know the truth. That evening, I sat in my car outside the office building where Derek claimed to work, watching through the lobby windows. I had called his supposed workplace earlier, asking to speak with Derek Lawson, only to be told that no one by that name was employed there. The security guard I spoke with was apologetic, but firm. When Derek's car pulled into the parking lot at 6 p.m., I slumped down in my seat, watching as he sat in his vehicle for several minutes, talking animatedly on his phone. Even from a distance, I could see his body language was completely different from the cold, distant man he became at home. He was smiling, laughing even, gesturing with his free hand like he was having the most wonderful conversation of his life. After 20 minutes, he ended the call and walked into the building, not to an office, but to the coffee shop on the ground floor. He ordered a drink and sat at a corner table, pulling out his laptop. For the next hour, he appeared to be working, but something about the scene felt staged, performative. When he finally left, he threw away what looked like fake paperwork and drove home. I followed at a safe distance, my mind racing. The man I married was not who he claimed to be. The question was, what was he hiding, and why had he married me? When I arrived home 10 minutes after him, Derek was already in the shower. I seized the opportunity to examine his phone, which he had left charging on the nightstand. It was locked, but I remembered him entering his passcode once. Our wedding date. My heart pounded as I typed in the numbers, and miraculously, the phone unlocked. What I found made my blood run cold. Text messages with someone named Chloe, filled with intimate exchanges and declarations of love. Photos of Derek with a woman I didn't recognize, both wearing wedding rings, standing in front of what appeared to be a courthouse. The most recent message, sent just hours ago, read, "Missing you, baby. Can't wait to see you this weekend." This whole situation was almost unbearable. The shower was still running when I forwarded the most damning photos and messages to my own phone, then carefully placed Derek's phone back where I found it. My hands shook violently as I stared at the evidence of what appeared to be Derek's double life. When Derek emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel and humming softly, I was sitting on the bed, pretending to read a magazine. He seemed genuinely happy for the first time in weeks, and now I understood why. He was living 2 lives, and apparently his life with me was the one he wanted to end. "I think I'll turn in early tonight," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "Good idea," Derek replied, and I didn't miss the relief in his voice. "Sweet dreams, Emily." As I lay in the dark, listening to his even breathing beside me, I made a decision that would shatter both our lives. Tomorrow, I would contact a lawyer and find out exactly who I had married. The next morning, I sat across from attorney Sarah Milton in her downtown Seattle office, the panoramic windows offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. I laid out all the evidence I had gathered: texts, photos, receipts, and the recording of Derek's phone call with Chloe. Sarah's face grew serious as she examined each piece. "Emily," she said carefully, "what you're showing me suggests potential bigamy and financial fraud. This isn't just grounds for divorce. This could be criminal." The words hit me like a thunderclap. Bigamy, financial fraud. The man I married, the man I thought I loved, was not just unfaithful, he was a calculated criminal. "But we have a marriage certificate," I whispered. "We were married at the country club, witnessed by over 200 people. Sarah nodded gravely. "Your marriage is legally valid on your end, which makes Derek's situation extremely serious. If he was already married to Chloe, he has committed a felony in Washington, punishable by years in prison. We need to move carefully, but quickly. I recommend hiring a private investigator immediately." Within hours, I was sitting across from Detective Michael Reyes, a former police officer turned private investigator specializing in marriage fraud cases. He was compact, sharp-eyed, and spoke with a directness that immediately put me at ease. He said, "I've seen cases like this before. The pattern is usually the same. They identify wealthy targets, court them quickly, marry, and then try to access finances before disappearing. The lack of intimacy is a red flag. They avoid physical contact because it complicates their exit strategy." "But he seemed so genuine when we dated." "Exactly," Reyes said. "That's what makes them dangerous. They research you, learn your vulnerabilities, and become the person you want them to be. Every gesture, every word is calculated." He handed me a small recording device. "If he admits anything or makes threats, we need it on record. Washington is a one-party consent state. You can legally record conversations you are part of without his knowledge." That evening, I watched Derek at dinner, scrutinizing every facial expression, every gesture. When he excused himself to take a phone call in his office, I discreetly turned on the recording device and positioned myself outside the door. "I know, baby. I miss you too," Derek's voice whispered. He spoke intimately to Chloe. Their conversation revealed plans to access my trust fund and outlined the exact methods of deception he had used. The cruelty of it made my stomach churn. Derek had married me as part of a calculated scheme to steal my inheritance, and every rejection, every cold gesture had been part of his manipulation. The next morning, I called Sarah and Detective Reyes. We began assembling the pieces for a trap. Derek and Chloe were skilled but predictable. They had created a financial shadow identity using my personal information, intending to drain my accounts. We filed for divorce as planned, presenting myself as a heartbroken, compliant wife. Derek's reaction was predictable: relief, a sense of triumph. He believed the path was clear to access my trust fund. Federal agents waited discreetly as Derek moved to execute his plan. We caught him red-handed, attempting to manipulate the financial institutions using falsified documents. Chloe, his accomplice, was apprehended at the same time. Over the course of the investigation, we discovered their pattern of marriage fraud across multiple states. Derek and Chloe had targeted at least 3 other women using similar tactics of whirlwind courtship, quick marriage, and financial exploitation. Both were charged with bigamy, identity theft, and wire fraud. Federal court proceedings revealed the full extent of their criminal enterprise. Derek received a 12-year federal sentence, Chloe, 8 years. Nearly $2 million stolen from their victims across 6 states was recovered and returned. As I watched the courtroom proceedings, Derek's confident composure collapsed entirely. Every lie, every romantic gesture, every calculated act had been exposed. The shock on his face when he realized I had known about his deception all along was priceless. Sitting quietly afterward with my sister and closest friends, I reflected on the journey. From the first moment of confusion and betrayal to uncovering the full scale of Derek's scheme, I had transformed from a naive newlywed to a woman who trusted her instincts and reclaimed her power. The revenge was not just about punishment, it was about justice, about ensuring no other woman would fall prey to Derek and Chloe's manipulations. Their criminal enterprise was dismantled, their reputations destroyed, and I had regained control of my life and my inheritance. For the first time in months, I could breathe freely. The man who had manipulated me, who had orchestrated a fraud so intricate it rivaled the most sophisticated schemes, was finally facing the consequences of his crimes. The courtroom became a stage for the final act, and I watched, empowered, as justice was served. I celebrated quietly, surrounded by loved ones, reflecting on the lessons I had learned. Betrayal had been devastating, but it had forged a new strength within me. And as I looked toward the future, I knew that nothing could manipulate, deceive, or intimidate me again. I had survived, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and victorious.